The sky cracked in silence. They didn't hear it at first. No alarms, no signatures, no lights, just a flicker, like the stars blinked in confusion. Then the shadow came. From the edge of the orbital blockade, behind Saturn's static rings, it moved. One ship. Ours. I watched through the viewport as it cut across the black. No transponder, no broadcast, just mass. A slow glide. Too smooth, too calm. The kind of silence that made aliens stop breathing. We'd never told them about this ship. Hell, we didn't tell ourselves. But it was real now. Earth's hidden supercarrier. I felt it in my chest before I saw it on radar, like pressure, like gravity changed. The crew went quiet. Even the ones who didn't believe in ghosts. I stood at command, boots heavy on the steel. No words, just eyes on the black. Then it came into full view. 5 kilometers long, matte black hull, no seams, no lights. It moved like it wasn't moving, just there, like a continent cut loose into orbit. The alien fleet stopped firing. They didn't understand what they were looking at. Neither did I. "Is that one of ours?" whispered the junior tech beside me. I didn't answer. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. The enemy fleet had us outnumbered. 15 cruisers, 2 dreadnoughts, multiple swarm pods. We'd lost contact with our Martian outpost 6 hours ago. We were supposed to be the last line. A distraction so evac ships could reach Europa. They were never meant to win. We were never meant to survive. But the carrier changed that. No name, no call sign. It moved past us without a sound. My ship's AI flickered, static hissed through the bridge. Then every system went offline. Dead silence. Not from damage, from proximity. The thing shut us down just by being close. And it wasn't alone. From its underbelly, something fell, silent, fast, hot. It didn't broadcast, didn't open a channel. It didn't ask for permission. It just dropped. A black pod, sleek and narrow, slammed into the enemy dreadnought. 1 second later, half of the dreadnought disintegrated. No explosion. No fire. Just vanished. A clean line across the hull, like it had been cut. No human weapon ever did that before. Hell, maybe not even human, but it was ours. Built by us. Hidden by us. Now unleashed. They say humanity is fragile, soft, weak. They forgot we come from Earth, a planet that burns, floods, quakes, a planet that doesn't forgive. The alien fleet broke formation. Their cruisers veered, swarm pods scattered. Some jumped. Most didn't. The carrier didn't pursue. It didn't need to. It just kept drifting forward. I watched it pass. No windows, no signs of life. Just dark metal, like a coffin the size of a mountain. And deep in my gut, I knew. That ship was never meant to defend us. It was built to end things. The silence on the bridge lasted too long. No one moved. No one dared speak. Finally, a comms tech whispered, "Do we follow it?" I looked at the black monster vanishing into space. "No," I said. "We don't follow death. We survive it." The supercarrier kept moving. It didn't look back. It never had to. After it passed, the stars felt dimmer. We stayed in silence for a long time. On the bridge, no one moved. No orders, no blinking lights, no rush to fix systems. Just the cold hum of backup power, flickering weak across dead monitors. We didn't even try to speak. The carrier was gone now, moving beyond the grid, past Saturn's reach. But the space it left behind didn't feel empty. It felt heavier, like something had settled into our lungs. I stood there, hand still gripping the steel railing in front of the main viewplate. The metal was slick with sweat. I didn't even know I'd been shaking. "Status," I said. My voice was hoarse, rougher than it should have been. The crew jolted, like sleepwalkers waking from a fall. Rebooting primary systems, said Ops. Slow response. AI link unstable. Might take manual control. External sensors? Some back. Comms still fried. No contact with the fleet, or what's left of it. I nodded. There wasn't a fleet anymore. I knew it. Everyone did. The enemy was gone, evaporated, scattered into dark corners of orbit, like rats that saw the trap's spring snap shut. Whatever that carrier did, however it erased half a dreadnought with one silent strike, it didn't just kill metal, it killed courage. I turned away from the viewplate and faced the crew. 23 soldiers, operators, analysts, all armed, all trained, all rattled to the bone. They weren't afraid of dying. They were afraid of us, our secrets, our silence. The fact that someone on Earth had built a weapon and never told us. Not command, not high brass, not fleet control. That thing was hidden, on purpose. I tapped into the emergency relay hard link, manual override, rerouted power, sparked life into auxiliary readouts. A few screens flared, glitchy, fractured images, static overlays, but one feed came through. Grainy, shaky, a single drone, still alive, drifting near the debris field. I leaned in. The image shook from impact residue. Radiation ripples across the screen, but the carrier, still visible in the distance, a dark shadow fading into black space. Then I saw the marks, not weapon ports, not standard, symbols, carved into the hull like etchings in obsidian. Foreign, too symmetrical to be random, not language, not ours. And deeper, underneath that, the burn marks, scars. The ship had been hit before. No hull should have survived that. But it had. I pulled up archived ship designs. Nothing matched. No file, no blueprint, no asset report. The carrier didn't exist on any registry, and yet there it was. 5 kilometers of silent vengeance, floating like a tomb with engines. They built it for something. Not just this. This was a test. Someone had finally decided we were worth showing. Or maybe warning. I turned toward Lieutenant Harkin at the tactical station. Young. Steady hands, but pale now. He looked at me like he wanted to speak. I gave him the nod. What if it's not ours, he said. His voice was soft. What if it was buried here, and we just woke it up? The others didn't respond, but they were all thinking it. I stepped closer, looked him in the eye. No one buries a carrier like that by accident. But we built it, I said. Someone did. Silence. Then the comms cracked. One line, dead static, then a voice. Male. Calm. Fleet command to Outpost Vengeance. Sit rep. I keyed in manual reply. This is Commander Thorne. We've lost the Martian relay. 72% fleet casualties. Enemy scattered. 1 unidentified Allied vessel engaged and neutralized enemy dreadnought. Static again. Then the voice. Acknowledged. Maintain position. Do not pursue. Upload all visual and sensory data on UAV. That was it. No questions. No shock. They knew. They'd always known. I ended the transmission. They didn't even ask what it was. That meant it wasn't just real. It was theirs. I leaned against the console, the edge biting into my palm. I stared at the blackened screen where the carrier had faded away. This wasn't a war anymore. It was a message. Not for the enemy. For us. Sir. It was Ops again. Sir, I think you should see this. She pulled up thermal sat feeds. Low orbit. Glitched at first, then cleaned. Earth, bright, blue, then something else. A ripple, like a heat wave across the surface. I narrowed my eyes. No impact signature? None. But we ran image history. That heat pattern didn't exist 30 minutes ago. Origin? Ops paused, swallowed. Antarctica. Of course. No surveillance. No satellites allowed, no flyovers. It wasn't just hidden, it was buried. And that ship had launched from there, not from orbit, not from another planet, from Earth. I stared at the readout, eyes narrowing on the bloom of infrared now fading across the frozen continent. Then a second signature appeared. Smaller, moving, up. Another launch, another carrier, no broadcast, no signal, just a vertical spike in heat and pressure. Then silence. I looked at the crew. Some had stepped back. One crossed himself. Another whispered, "What the hell is happening?" I answered before I thought. "We've been lied to." And I was right. This war wasn't about invasion. It was never about territory. It was provocation. They were waiting to see what we'd use. We kept our knives sheathed too long. Let them think we were easy. Soft. But someone on Earth had kept the truth sharp, hidden, and now they were unsheathing the blade. One ship at a time. I turned back toward the viewport, watched as the cold stars flickered above Saturn's rings. No more dreadnoughts, no more cruisers. The enemy was gone. But now, the galaxy would know. What Earth really had. What we really were. They tried to leave. 12 hours after the second launch, we picked up their signal. Fractured, quiet, panicked. The alien fleet wasn't regrouping. They weren't planning a counter-offensive. They were running. Their command cruiser had jumped toward the edge of the Helios Rift, barely within range of deep space sensors. We tracked 3 more ships limping behind it, engines hot, hulls scored and bleeding debris. No formation, no cover, just retreat. They weren't escaping Earth. They were escaping something worse. I stood on the command deck with a mug of black ration coffee cooling in my hand. Didn't drink it. Just needed something warm to hold. Something normal. The bridge had gone quiet again. Not from fear. Not anymore. This was awe. And no one had words for that. Outside the viewport, the wreckage of the first engagement drifted in a slow orbit. Alien hulls torn in half. Splinters of metal and bone, frozen in the silence of space. Our ships, too, what was left of them. Burned out husks, empty of crew. We hadn't won the battle. The carrier had. And now another was out there, somewhere, untracked, unseen. I turned to tactical. "Any word from command?" "No, full blackout." "Europa convoy?" "Still moving, slower than planned. Navigation's rerouting around wreck fields." "They make it?" "Maybe." "If the third carrier doesn't launch?" I didn't say anything. That wasn't a question. That was a hope, and hope was running thin. A sound crackled from the lower deck. Sharp, sudden, comms channel 4. Not one we used. Not one we were supposed to use. Ops looked at me. I nodded once. She opened it. Audio only, no encryption. The voice came through. Male, calm, clean, like a knife gliding across ice. "Outpost Vengeance, this is Command Node Obsidian. Deactivate all pursuit protocols. No hostile action. All remaining alien vessels are to be left unengaged. They are being tracked. Do not interfere." No one spoke. Then it continued. "This operation is now classified as Level 9. You are not to broadcast this contact. All bridge crew are now flagged for ground-side debrief. Prepare for planetary descent. Expect retrieval in 12 hours. It ended. No name, no rank, no confirmation, just an order, and the knowledge that they knew everything. I leaned against the console and exhaled through my nose. Ground-side debrief. That wasn't a debrief. That was containment. They wanted silence. They always did. Lieutenant Harkin shifted at his console. "Sir, if we go back down—" "We don't," I said. "But if they're launching more carriers, if they've had this tech the whole time, why now?" "Because someone made them use it." That was the truth. We hadn't deployed our monsters because of policy. We deployed them because something cornered us, and Earth doesn't die in a corner. It bites. Hard. I looked at my crew, operators, engineers, survivors. Every one of them had lost something in the last 3 days. Family, friends, a limb, a reason. But now they had something else. Fear, not of the aliens, of home. I want black box backups running, I said. All data, all visuals, get it into a hardened drive. Physically, no uplink. They hesitated. That was an act of disobedience. I gave them the stare. One by one, they moved. They understood. Truth doesn't survive in a transmission. It survives in hands, in scars. We worked in silence, systems flickering back online slowly, life support stabilized, engine heat normalized. The ship was functional again. But it felt different now, like we were ghosts crewing a myth. We were still in low orbit when the third carrier launched. No warning, no countdown, just a bloom of infrared over the Himalayas. Mountain cracked open like an egg, and from it another shadow rose. Not the same shape. This one was sleeker, shorter, brighter hull. A different breed, lighter, faster, a carrier meant for pursuit. Ops turned toward me, eyes wide. "Sir, this one's broadcasting." I moved to her station. The signal was on all bands, not encrypted, meant to be heard. A message repeated in loop. "Engaging final evasives, enemy contact sustained, Earth response deploying, observation terminated." Then coordinates. Location, edge of the Andromeda breach, not local. That meant they weren't running from us. They were running from something else. And we had sent the pursuit carrier after them. Earth was chasing the survivors across galaxies. We weren't just defending anymore. We were hunting. "Sir," Ops said, voice low, "I think we need to decide, do we report this or vanish?" I didn't look at her. I watched the new carrier disappear into the dark. And I answered quietly. "We're already ghosts." 3 hours later, I gathered the crew in the cargo hold, sealed it. No cameras, no surveillance, only steel and breath. "I'm not going back," I said. "No speech, just truth. I'm not letting them drag us into a room and erase what we saw, what we know." They waited. No one moved. I looked at each of them. "You've got a choice. You follow orders, or you follow what's right." Then I showed them the drive. Cold, heavy, contained everything, every signal, every image, every death, every shadow. Someone has to carry the truth. They didn't speak, but one by one they nodded. That was all I needed. We rerouted the ship's trajectory, set coordinates for outer Mars, abandoned relay zone, dead sector, no satellites, enough power for one last burst. After that, we'd drift, but we'd drift free. With the truth. We launched 2 stealth pods, no transponders, just sealed drives, one aimed for Europa, the other for Titan. Maybe someone would find them, maybe no one would. But they were out there now. Proof. And proof is the one thing power fears most. When the fleet finally came for us, we were already gone, drifting past Jupiter's shadow. Cold, silent, waiting. Not to be saved, but to watch, to see what came next. Because Earth wasn't a world anymore. It was a warning, and the stars were about to hear it. We drifted past Jupiter for 2 days. Engines dead. Power low, life support stable, barely. We rationed heat, light, and breath. No comms, no pings, not even passive scans. We didn't want to be found. Not by Earth, not by what Earth had become. I sat in the forward module, alone, staring through the angled glass at the black beyond. Stars looked different now. Smaller, not because of distance, but because of what we'd seen. Once you see gods walk, you stop looking at candles the same way. There were 14 of us left. 6 had opted to eject in silent pods. Couldn't take it. Didn't want to be part of it. Thought disappearing into the void was cleaner than watching Earth turn into what we feared it already was. I didn't blame them. Hell, I envied them. I checked the physical drive again. It was sealed in a titanium case, magnetic lock keyed to my pulse. Primitive tech, old Earth, unhackable. Inside, data logs, visual recordings, sensor echoes, decrypted frequencies. Everything we saw, everything they didn't want seen. I didn't know if it would survive, but I would, because someone had to. Commander, Ops' voice buzzed over the hardline. You should see this. I stood slowly. My knees cracked. I hadn't slept in 30 hours. Sleep didn't come easy when the sky might tear open any second. I walked the length of the main corridor. Emergency lights painted everything in that sick red glow, the color of dying ships and last warnings. Ops stood by the main terminal, staring at the feed from our last passive scope ping. She looked pale, eyes wide but locked. What is it? I asked. She stepped back. I saw it. On the far edge of the screen, barely visible, a shape. No ID tag, no power reading, no emission trail, just mass. Stationary. I magnified. Then again. 5 clicks long, clean, flat, featureless. It wasn't the same carrier from before. It was another one, the 4th. Just sitting there. Drifting like a body. No heat signature, no signal. Like it wasn't alive. Like it was waiting for something. Ops whispered. It's been there since before we arrived. We just didn't have the resolution to see it. Why now? Because it wants to be seen. I looked at her. She was right. Nothing that big goes unnoticed unless it lets you not notice. The timing, the silence, the way it drifted just inside the thermal shadow of Jupiter's outer magnetosphere. Whoever was piloting that ship, or whatever was inside, it wanted us to see it now. Not earlier, not later. Now. Engineering, route power to forward stabilizers. Slowly, I said. I want to drift closer, not wake it. We aligned our vector, inching through the vacuum like a corpse in orbit. The closer we got, the less it looked like a carrier. It had no windows, no weapon bays, not even a clear propulsion system. It looked more like a shard. A sliver of some massive thing broken off and left to float. But as we neared, lights began to flicker across its surface. Not external, internal, like it was alive and dreaming. Harkin leaned in. Sir, there's something moving. He was right. Inside the black, behind layered shielding and whatever that hull was made of, shapes moved. Not people, not crew, weapons, sleeping, stacked, rows and rows, sleeper pods for machines. I didn't know what to call them. Drones, armor units, sentinels. Didn't matter. I knew what they were for. Not defense. Erasure. We need to get out of here, Ops said. She was right, too, but it was too late. The lights on the carrier shifted. Not flashing, not hostile, just watching. Then something new happened. Sound. Not external. Internal. A vibration. Low. Like a deep hum that rattled your lungs. Even in vacuum. The ship was singing. Not music. Resonance. Like a tuning fork made for stars. Harkin's station flared. He shouted, "It's broadcasting." I stepped in. "On what band?" He looked up. His face had gone gray. "No band." "What?" "No radio, no EM, no subspace. Nothing in our range." "Then what the hell's broadcasting?" His eyes met mine. Us. Our ship. Our metal was vibrating. The damn thing was using us like an antenna. "Shut down all systems! Full kill switch!" I ordered. Too late. The signal had already gone out. To where? No clue. Maybe Earth. Maybe not Earth. We stared at the thing as the lights across its surface dimmed. Not off. Just back to sleep. Then, as slow as it had appeared, it began to turn. Not with thrusters, not with force, just pivoting like some ancient leviathan in water. Then it vanished. Not cloaked. Gone. No warp trail, no jump echo, just gone. Gone in the same way a nightmare disappears when you wake up, but leaves the sweat on your back. We didn't speak for hours after that, just drifted. The drive was still in my hand. Now heavier. Not because of what it held, because of what it didn't. That fourth carrier hadn't attacked, hadn't warned. It had spoken. And we had no idea what we'd just said back. It happened 6 hours later. The comms lit up. Every channel, every language, every frequency, not just ours. Alien, hybrid, dead dialects, old Earth tongues. The same message, over and over. We saw you. We hear you. You are not hidden. Then silence. No source, no return path, just presence. My crew gathered on the bridge again. 14 survivors, veterans, officers, fighters, all of them pale. Ops said, "They're not talking to the aliens, are they?" "No," I said. "They're talking to us." Harkin whispered, "We woke them." I shook my head. We didn't wake them. We reminded them. He didn't ask of what. He already knew. Earth had tried to bury something. Not tech, not weapons, but a truth. That the only thing scarier than our enemies is what we become when we have nothing left to lose. Later, I watched the crew sleep. Scattered across the hold, wrapped in thermal blankets, backs to cold walls. No lights, no heat, just breath. I didn't sleep, couldn't. My body ached. My hand throbbed from gripping the case. My heart felt slow, not from fear, from weight. There was no going back, not to Earth, not to normal, not to peace. Even if we made it, they'd erase us. Not with bullets, with forgetting. They'd call it hallucinations. Radiation trauma, false signals, rogue AI. They'd spin it until even we didn't believe ourselves anymore. But I'd still have this case. And they can kill a man, but they can't kill memory. The pod I launched to Titan would take weeks to reach orbit. But once it did, it would broadcast once on an old Earth pirate band, long-range, analog. To anyone listening, not to scream for help, but to whisper a warning. Earth is not what you think it is. It never was. The pod didn't scream when it left. It whispered. We launched it from the belly of the ship, cold and unlit, its shell wrapped in radar-dampening plates. It wasn't fast. It wasn't armed. It wasn't meant to survive a fight. It was meant to arrive. That was enough. We watched it drift from the viewport, disappearing into the dark with no trail behind it. Just another speck in the void. But inside it carried everything. The logs, the recordings, our signatures, blood samples, flight paths, ship IDs, names, ranks, everything Command would bury if we let them, and something else. Our voices, not speeches, not hope. Just each of us alone in the comms booth saying one truth. Mine was simple. We saw what Earth truly is. If you hear this, don't look back. After that, the silence felt earned. Not peaceful. Just deserved. We rationed power, cleaned the filters, patched the cracks. There wasn't much left to do except wait. Hope the pod slipped through the net. Hope Titan's orbital rings didn't tag it and toss it into deep space like so much trash. We couldn't send more, fuel wouldn't allow it, and truth only needs to escape once. On the fourth day, the stars changed. I was the first to see it. Sitting in the forward crew module, chewing on dried rations and trying not to count the heartbeat gaps in our artificial gravity. You spend enough time staring at the void, and you start recognizing patterns. Motion, color, pulse. This wasn't a ship. It was a glow, faint, red, like an ember drifting across the edge of vision, but it wasn't drifting. It was circling. "Harkin," I called. "Forward scope. Zoom. Passive scan only." He leaned into the console, tapped keys, slow, quiet. His breath caught halfway through. "It's not on radar." "Infrared?" "Nothing." "Visual only?" He nodded. It's just there." I stood, stepped toward the screen. And there it was, a red light, faint, too smooth to be natural, no strobe, no flicker, like a dying star frozen mid-thought. It was watching us. It wasn't a drone. It wasn't a carrier. It was a signal. "I don't think that's Earth tech," Harkin said. "No," I said. "It's not." Because Earth didn't warn before it came. But something else did. The next 4 hours were worse than battle. We didn't speak. We didn't move. We just watched it hover in the black, that single red dot pulsing with quiet menace. It never got closer, never sent a transmission. But every time you looked away and then looked back, it had shifted, just slightly, enough to remind you it was alive. Ops tried to run a spectral analysis. The system crashed, not from overload, from corruption, like the signal rewrote it just by being looked at. It had no mass, no heat, no broadcast. But it was there. Watching. "Do we power up shields?" someone asked. I shook my head. "We don't poke it, we don't touch it. We let it watch." Because I knew what this was. Not a scout, not a threat. It was a test. They'd seen the carriers. They'd seen the message sent into the void, and now they wanted to know. What kind of species would defy its own gods? We had, and the stars had noticed. It stayed for 12 hours. Then it vanished. No burst, no jump, just gone, like it had blinked out of existence or simply decided we weren't worth burning. I sat alone after that, half asleep in the command chair. The crew rested where they could. All of us running on instinct now, half alive, half dead. We were already dead, in a way. Earth would never take us back. We'd seen too much, and something in the dark had seen us. Day 6. Harkin came to me with a look I didn't like. "You need to hear this." He guided me to the comms room. He'd been running background scans on passive channels. Nothing active. Nothing outbound. Just listening, and buried in the static was a voice. Old, male, human, broken English, accent thick. Not from Earth Prime. The transmission was faint. Looped. But I caught the words. "This is Zeta Colony 8. If anyone hears, they've come. They said Earth sent them. But they're not human. Not anymore." Then static and blood. The frequency was stained with some kind of binary code. Garbled, encrypted. Harkin was pale. "Sir, this colony was listed as abandoned after the first Xyrix assault. We assumed it was wiped." I shook my head. "No, they were silenced." "By who?" I looked at him. He already knew. Earth didn't lose colonies. Earth cleaned up. I ordered full encryption of the signal, stored it alongside the rest of our black box data. It wasn't just about the supercarriers now. This was bigger. They were deploying, not just in defense, not in retaliation. They were moving across human space, wiping loose ends, silencing records, killing the pieces of history that didn't match the narrative. And we were next. We didn't wait. I issued a final order. Scatter. Every crew member took an escape pod. Timed launches, silent paths, random vectors. Some headed toward asteroid fields, others toward forgotten outposts, a few straight into the void. None back to Earth. Each pod carried a piece of the drive, split and scrambled. No one had all of it, but put together, they could rebuild it, if they lived. When it came time for mine, I didn't hesitate. I left last, floating alone in the dark, cold air licking my suit as the pod hummed to life. The ship drifted away behind me, our broken shell of truth. I didn't look back. Because ghosts don't have homes. As the pod left orbit, my onboard monitor picked up one last signal. Faint, but real. Visual only. A black carrier, longer than any we'd seen. No lights, no movement. But across its hull, words burned in deep red paint. We were silent too long. And below that, now we clean. I didn't cry, Didn't pray, just leaned back, closed my eyes, and whispered, "Let them come." My pod was dying, oxygen down to 22%, water filter corrupted. The heating coils worked in pulses, and every 6th minute my breath turned white. But the black outside was clean, and silence was safer than any voice I knew. I'd programmed the pod to drift on a non-ballistic arc across the shadow of Ganymede, not toward the colony, away, toward the crust fractures no one ever bothered to chart. No satellites, no patrols, just cold ice, rock, and the bones of old satellites from before the collapse. I wanted to be invisible. I wanted time to think. But Earth doesn't leave its problems behind. It hunts them. On day 14, the dreams came. Not mine. Not natural. They weren't dreams so much as impositions. Memories that didn't belong to me. Images stitched together from heat and pain. A hangar the size of a mountain. Rows of things that breathed but didn't blink. Voices in helmets, machines that screamed when touched. And always, the ship. It appeared in every dream, the long black carrier with no name and no lights. But in the dreams, it spoke, not in words, in pressure, in weight. It pushed feelings into my chest like stones into a grave. Rage, betrayal, justice, not for what had been done to Earth, but for what Earth had become. I woke on the 15th day choking on dry blood. Nosebleed, standard atmo failure. My suit rebalanced pressure, but not in time to stop the damage. I cleaned it with my sleeve. Didn't matter. I was already marked. That's when the signal came. No ping, no warning, just presence. A quiet vibration in the hull. Soft, subtle, like fingers brushing steel. Then a voice filled the pod. Male, calm, controlled. Not a broadcast, a direct intrusion. "Commander Thorne, Protocol 9 has been breached. You are in unauthorized possession of classified sensory logs. Release all data to the orbital oversight grid and prepare for retrieval." I said nothing. Didn't need to. They couldn't see me. Not in this pod. No uplink. No biometric tag. But they knew. They always did. Another vibration. "Commander, you are interfering with planetary-level cleansing operations. You are advised to comply. Failure will result in escalation." That word. Cleansing. They weren't even pretending anymore. I opened the drive interface manually, sealed in lead, pulse-locked, offline. It would take me 17 minutes to unpack and transfer the data into the pod's self-destruct uplink, assuming they didn't intercept me mid-process. So I made my choice. I didn't send the data to Earth. I sent it to everywhere else. 4 encrypted pulses, shortwave bursts, Europa, Titan, Ceres, Lagrange Point 3, old colony outposts, abandoned research rings, pirate listening posts, places where human shadows still lived in defiance of central authority. I scattered the truth like ash. No map, no flag, just pieces of a corpse waiting to be remembered. The response came in less than 6 minutes. I felt it first, that low-pressure tremor behind the eyes, then the cold spike in the air, then the scream. Not mine. The pod's. The hull tore open not from outside, but from the inside. Metal peeled, panels bent inward, like the pod had been gripped by invisible hands and unfolded. I floated in silence, exposed to vacuum, but still alive. Something held my breath steady, kept the blood from boiling, kept my heart from bursting. I drifted slowly, arms limp, eyes open, watching as the void shaped itself. A shape emerged from nothing. Black, seamless, a ship, not like the others, smaller, faster, like a knife instead of a sword. It stopped less than 200 meters from my position. No lights, no signal, just intent. Then I heard it again. The voice, same tone, but this time, quieter. Not a command, a confession. We didn't build them to save us. Pause. We built them to remember who we used to be. I didn't understand at first. Then the ship moved, silently, swiftly. It passed beneath me like a shadow gliding across a grave. And as it did, I felt it. Not gravity, not pressure, memory. The carrier's presence forced truth into me like a broken bottle. Flash images. The first test site. Underground. No atmosphere, no gravity, just fire and ash. The first prototype. Nothing but a command core welded into sentient steel. No AI, just rage given form. Then the decision. Command authorized the silence directive, a plan to create not weapons, but reminders. Ships built not to win wars, but to outlast civilization, to drift long after humanity had destroyed itself, to survive and warn whoever came next. But something changed. They didn't wait for the end. They launched them early, not as guardians, as executioners. The voice returned, this time inside my skull. No sound, no vibration, just knowing. They don't serve Earth, not anymore. They serve memory. They serve consequence. The ship pulsed once, its hull rippling like liquid shadow. Then it vanished, gone again. No burst, no trail, just silence. I drifted unconscious for 7 hours. Woke up inside an old relay ring. Orbital platform abandoned 50 years ago. No working systems, just passive solar blankets and a cracked oxygen scrubber. But someone had dragged me here. My pod was gone. The drive? Still sealed. Still pulsing. I wasn't dead, and I wasn't alone. In the darkness of the station, someone had scrawled a message in burnt carbon across the floor. We saw it too. Now I wait. Scrubbers are stable, rations low. I sleep in shifts. Keep the drive in a cold lock under my arm. Talk to it sometimes, not for answers. Just to remember I'm not the only one who knows. And I wonder, how many others are out there? How many ghosts are drifting in the dark, carrying scraps of the truth like me? How many have already been silenced? How many ships has Earth launched since we vanished? How many more cleansings will there be? No one answers. Only silence. But even silence has a shape now. And its shape is us. The first voice I heard in 22 days wasn't from Earth. It was from a dead woman. Her name wasn't important. Not anymore. Not when her lungs had failed a decade ago in one of the early purge colonies. But her voice, the recording, still played, looping. In the corner of the relay station's storage bay, I found an old black box recorder hooked to a cracked solar panel. The screen was dusted over with carbon, fingerprints frozen into its casing like scars. But when I brushed it off, it lit up. One message. Short. Damaged. If you're hearing this, they didn't finish the job. Earth sent them to erase us, but we buried a piece. They don't want survivors. They want silence. Then it cut. It wasn't desperation I felt. It was familiarity. We were just the next link in the chain, the next group to see something we weren't supposed to and pay the price for remembering it. I stayed in that relay station for 9 more days. Alone. The bones of old tech kept the power just high enough to warm a room. My suit recharged slow. Water recycled on filters 2 generations past failure. I patched them with metal from an old pressure door and wired them to a solar tether. It held. I slept on the floor in shifts. 2 hours on, 3 off. Never full sleep. Always waiting to hear the hull tear again. But it didn't. Because I wasn't the threat anymore. I was just a reminder. The carrier didn't return. But its effect did. On the 30th day, I caught another signal. Weak. Guttered. Old analog transmission bouncing off Jupiter's belt. Something ancient. One of the black pirate arrays we used to use before command shut them all down. This one shouldn't have worked. But it did. I caught 4 words. Carrier breach, fleet gone, then static, then another signal. Mars black site purged, civilians terminated. And then, Supercarrier turned inward. Repeat. It's facing Earth. I stared at the screen for 5 minutes. Didn't move. Didn't speak. If it was true, they lost control. The ship, the one we saw from orbit, wasn't just drifting anymore. It had turned. And if its nose was pointed at Earth, something had shifted. The knife they used to silence others was now looking back at its maker, and Earth didn't build things that forgave. 3 days later, I found another survivor. I was half dead, searching an abandoned EVA pod cluster that had broken loose from a lunar mining ring decades ago. I'd tracked a faint bio sign, residual, likely nothing. But I had to know. She was inside one of the pods, thin, gaunt, burn scars across half her face, oxygen low, but alive. She didn't speak at first, just stared at me like I was a hallucination. Then, finally, when I handed her a ration bar, she said, "You're one of them, aren't you?" I waited. She clarified. "The ghosts." I nodded. Her name was Rhea, former communications tech, Europa Division. She'd gone silent after one of the black site purges, had been drifting ever since, living off static and hope. She didn't ask about Earth. She asked about the carriers. Are they human? I gave her the only answer I had. They were. We patched her pod and linked it to mine. Created a 2-unit drift system, primitive, exposed, but enough to move. We didn't head toward help. We headed toward memory. Ceres. One of the first places they tested the deep core AI, the mind frames that made the carriers possible, before they learned to weaponize them, back when they thought they could contain what they built. The place had gone dark 27 years ago. Classified as an internal systems accident, everyone knew that meant a massacre. But maybe someone buried something there. The drift took a week, no navigation, just blind burns and solar gravity slings. During the 5th night, Rhea woke me with a whisper. "They're cleansing Venus." I sat up. Cold air stung my face. She showed me the signal. Low band, fragmented, faint, but unmistakable. Command vessel overridden. All orbital habitats targeted. Cleansing active. Another colony, gone. And not because of war, because they remembered something Earth wanted forgotten. We didn't talk about it. There was no point. You don't mourn in the middle of a storm. You endure. We reached Ceres orbit on the 8th day. The station was there. Barely. Broken in 3 pieces, spinning slowly like a corpse, still twitching in vacuum. No power, no signals, but something glowed inside the largest fragment, deep, buried in the core, a pulse, dim, blue, slow, like a heartbeat on life support. We docked manually. I went in first. Steel groaned under my boots, air stale, dry, smelled like dust and rot. We followed the pulse. 4 levels down, inside a sealed cryo chamber we found it. Not a person, a core. Encased in lead and obsidian plating, tied to a half-dead AI mainframe older than either of us had trained on. Still active, still watching. We powered it with what little we had. And it spoke. Not words. Images. Like the carrier. The memory flooded into our minds like smoke through a vent. They hadn't built the carriers alone. They had found something. Deep in Europa's ocean. Buried in the crust of an alien moon. A structure. Not alive. Not machine. Something between. And they copied it. Badly. Crude. But effective. What Earth called supercarriers weren't just ships. They were translations of something older, something forgotten. And now, the originals were waking up. We downloaded everything. The data was fragmented, corrupted, but real, proof. that the carriers weren't Earth's alone, that the design was stolen, that the memory inside them, the anger, wasn't ours. It was older. We sealed it, protected it, then prepped another pod. We'd launch it toward Pluto's dark side. Let it drift, not as a message, as a beacon, for others like us. The ones who'd seen too much, lost too much, chosen silence because screaming never worked. Ghosts. Let the ghosts find each other. Let the ghosts remember. We weren't saviors. We weren't heroes. We were the ones Earth left behind. And now we carried the weight of a truth no one wanted to hold. But someone had to, because the carriers were no longer tools. They were judges. And soon, very soon, they would turn fully around and look back at the world that birthed them. And Earth would finally understand. Some silence can't be controlled. Some weapons don't come back. Some ghosts don't forgive. The beacon launched. No fanfare, no countdown. Just a pressure hiss as the pod detached and drifted out from Ceres' broken cradle, the glow of its encrypted memory pulsing like a wound in the dark. Inside it, everything. The data from the AI core, the carrier logs, the erased colonies, the voices of the dead, and something more, something I hadn't expected. A final record from the core. Visual. Time-stamped 23 years ago. A live feed of the first supercarrier launch. Not from Earth, not from any shipyard, but from deep beneath the Indian Ocean, a black hole torn in the water by force, not gravity. No ship rose. The sea split. And what came out wasn't built. It had always been there, waiting. Human engineers on the decks below tried to control it. They attached signal relays, pressure locks, biosinks. They never succeeded. They didn't command it. They awoke it. The Earth didn't create the first carrier. They freed it. We didn't sleep after that. Rhea and I sealed off the Ceres station, scuttled the dock, burned all systems. No trace left behind. Not for Earth, not for the carriers. If they wanted to find us, they'd have to look, really look, and we'd see them first. It was on the 43rd day that the Earth sent a final message. Not through comms, through presence. We picked it up from a thermal scope scavenged off a dead recon drone. It was drifting just past the orbit of Mars. No drive signature, no weapons, just silence. But it wasn't a ship. It was a relay. New model. Earth military issue. AI guided. Its message was simple. Broadcast in every known language. Voice of a woman. Calm. Almost kind. All unauthorized carriers have been neutralized. Your actions are in violation of Global Harmony Protocol. The unauthorized data you possess contains falsified records. Earth requests peaceful return and debrief. A new world is waiting. It ended with coordinates. Not to Earth. To New Earth. I looked at Rhea. She shook her head before I even spoke. We didn't need to answer. They'd lied with a straight face. Again. But I noticed something else. They weren't offering threats anymore. They were offering promises. That meant they were afraid. Good. Let them be. The carriers returned 3 days later. All of them. Not one. Not 4. Dozens. Hundreds. They appeared like shadows uncoiling from the black. No drive trails, no formation, just mass. Silent and inevitable. A wall, across the edge of the solar system. None of them pointed toward the stars. They were all facing inward. Toward Earth. No signal, no demand. Just presence. That's all they needed. That's all they'd ever needed. Humanity had forgotten something. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits. Quiet. Patient. And when it moves, it doesn't announce itself. It just ends things. We intercepted a last burst transmission from Luna. A general, female, unnamed, breathless. Her voice cracked with panic even though she tried to control it. They're not responding. We tried to deactivate them. Signal override failed. They're not under command protocol anymore. They've... Static, then screaming, then nothing. We never heard from Earth again. In the weeks that followed, we tracked impact signatures. Silent, surgical. The carriers didn't destroy cities. They removed them. Entire regions, clean-cut zones where no heat, no light, no matter remained. Not nuclear, not orbital. Something worse, memory erasure in physical form. They weren't bombing Earth. They were rewriting it. Cleansing not out of hatred, but because the rot had gone too deep. Because humanity, as it was, had tried to enslave its own warnings. And now, the warnings were returning the favor. I asked Rhea once, as we stared into the black where Earth used to be bright, "Do you think they'll stop?" She looked tired. Not old, not afraid, just tired. "No," she said. "Not until everything is forgotten." I nodded. Because that's what the carriers were. Not vengeance, not justice, just forgetting made manifest. The final silence humanity had earned. Our beacon had long since left our system. We never heard back. But we watched the outer systems darken. One by one, old colonies, secret labs, war satellites, each went dark. Not destroyed, just silenced. The carriers weren't chasing, they were retrieving, bringing back the parts of Earth it tried to abandon, all the ghosts, all the truth, all the violence, and pulling it into a single memory, to erase it. Rhea died in her sleep. No struggle, just stopped breathing. Her body was still warm when I found her. I didn't cry. There was no point. Tears are for grief. This wasn't grief. This was consequence. I burned her pod, let the oxygen explode outward like a flower. She deserved that. Not burial. Release. Now it's just me, alone in a shell of carbon and old air, watching stars I don't trust. My bones ache. My hands tremble. The memory drive pulses next to my chest. Faint now. Maybe it's dying. Maybe it's alive. Doesn't matter. I'll keep it until I'm gone. Because someone has to. Because if there's one thing left to do, it's this. Remember what they wanted erased. Earth made its silence, and the silence answered. It came not with fire, but with forgetting. And as the last living man who knew, I whisper this now, into dark frequencies, into ghost signals. We were warned. We warned ourselves. We built gods in our image, and they turned around to look at us. And in the end, they didn't scream. They didn't cry. They just stared. Until Earth forgot itself. And the last light blinked out.